Very, very important.
Turn it around. Let us have a look.
It's flat on that side.
Yeah, on the other side it's not flat.
It's flat on that side, so the flat part goes onto the bearing there,
Yes.
onto the shaft there, and then the bearing goes on and locates on that there.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're going to move everything out the way, and then we'll take off the bottom blade so that we can do the bottom blade and the cylinder all in one show here. So I'm going to put this to one side. And put that in there. Now, the bottom blade. We are lucky enough here at Westfield Park to have a little compressor which we run off there. And if you just stand a little bit back, I'm going to blow all the grass cuttings out for Okay. Now this is the bottom blade. If we can just zoom in here on this bottom blade here. This is probably the most important part about the bottom blade is you can see that it's now the cylinder is touching from there to there, from the shiny bit, from there to there. And obviously when you move the cylinder down and down, it gets bigger and bigger. And this is not very good for the cylinder or the bottom blade. But what we do is on the cylinder, what was I going to say? The bottom blade, yes. If you get that much wear area on the bottom blade, it generates heat into the cylinder. So when the greenkeeper is cutting the green and moving up and down, and somebody calls him and he leaves the machine running there, this blade gets so hot that it actually burns a brown line on the green, and that's not good. So what we sometimes do is we actually back this off so that we have a sharp edge right on the front face there for the cylinder again. Okay, so now I'm going to tip the machine up on its side, because not everybody's going to have a workbench like this that I'm lucky to have. So we need to get access to, put it down there, we need to get access to these bolts here. So I'm just going to blow it out here. If you just chance there we go. I'm not going to turn it on, so I'm going to do it as it is here. So I'm going to move it forward so we can get the hammer on there. Now here's one of the tools that you need for removing the screws in the bottom here. They are countersunk screws, which are flat. I've got a flat on them, so I'm going to put a flat in there, and this is called an impact screwdriver. And as you put it in and you hit it, it will actually jerk it loose. So let's do that now, and I'll show you how we do the first one here. There, we're putting it in the thing, and there we go. As soon as you crack it, it'll be loose. So we do this on all 9 of them. You will excuse me sniffing. It's pretty cold in Joburg this morning. These are countersunk screws, and some people use Allen cap screws. which can also be used, but they tend to, oh, that one's a little bit loose. There we go. So what I do is I take all the 4 outside ones and I leave the middle one in still. Just to hold it in place. One, two, three, 4. There you go. And then we'll take the 4 outside ones on this side. The trouble with the countersunk cap screws is that they get full of brass cuttings, and you have to dig all the heads of the cap screws out to get the Allen key back in. So there's your bottom blade, and as you can see on the bottom blade here, the bottom blade, that's where the cylinder stops that end and stops that end. It's about 10 millimeters there, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters there. So we've got a new one here which has got the very sharp edge on the top there to go against the cylinder again. Okay, so what I normally do is I use my blade here. It's normally rusted underneath there, so I just scrape it clean. I would be doing a lot more cleaning, but I'm going to just reinstall this blade here so that we can carry on. Now what you do is, when you do actually change them over, you take your grease pot and you dip the screws in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the middle one, and then back inside it goes. So every one will have a dollop of grease on there. No questions so far?
Doing fine, Charlie, doing fine.
Doing fine. Okay. Now, if you're just going to change the bottom blade and leave the cylinder in position, then the first thing you must do is you must move the cylinder up off the bottom blade, because where it would be worn on there, it'll be below the cutting edge here. So when you actually put the bottom blade in, it'll be tight against the cylinder. So you must move the cylinder up before you put the bottom blade, the new bottom blade in. The bottom blades are changed more frequently than the cylinder is changed. The cylinder is changed maybe once or twice a season, and the bottom blades are, excuse me, the bottom blades, you would need 3 or 4 cylinder bottom blades per season, because of the wear that it actually does on the bottom blade. So they wear down quicker than the cylinder does. Now the cylinder, you can actually rather than take the cylinder off and put it to one side, you can actually change it and turn it over so that there's a new cutting edge on there. I'll show you that a little bit later. We're just going to turn this to tightening, and we're going to tighten the countersunk screws. The countersunk screws are very good for holding the blade up against the sole plate. That is called the inner plate where we screw it up against. That's called the sole plate. So we screw this up against there. The bottom blades are not normally far out of parallel, so I just give it a couple of taps just to give it a little bit of tightening on there. You don't have to do these very tight, because when the flat on the screw gets worn down, it's very, very difficult to get it off again. So I see that one's fine. Okay, there we go. That's the bottom blade put on again. Okay, what we can do is we can put the machine back on its legs. And there you have the bottom blade installed. I'm going to give it another blowout on these bearing caps, because it's very important to get, if we can just zoom in here, this surface where the bearing actually sits, or the bearing cap sits on, must be very clean, because they're machined out on a CNC machine. They're all exactly the same